Hey, how's it going, guys? This is Tom from UDS with another edition of the Quarantine Sessions, where I chat to people a lot cooler than myself in the wonderful land of lockdown. Now, my guest this week is a man who countless bands would consider as a major influence, and who continues to push what is possible with music and genre to this day. He was once Christian Blackthorne of sheer power. Now he is simply known as the most handsome musician performing today, Jamie Lenman.
There we go. That's going to haunt me for the rest of my days now. I was a little bit too candid. But okay, I'll take it. Christian Blackthorne, yeah?
Yeah, well, obviously you are now known as Jamie Lenman, and I have to ask, how are you doing in these weird, wonderful times that we live in?
Yes, I'm very good, thank you. As we were just saying before the broadcast for your viewers, today I find myself a little bit out of sorts because I did a live stream broadcast last night on the internet, and I know for younger folks and more tech-savvy folks, that's not such a big deal. But for me, I'm a bit of a technophobe. So I get very tense. And even though it's fun when I'm doing it, the lead-up is quite tense. And then afterwards, I'm just so wired, coupled with the fact that I ate an awful lot of junk food and watched a Sylvester Stallone double bill. I was wired and I didn't get to bed until about 6 a.m. This happens to me sometimes, and all my ideas run round my head. I think there's a song about it on one of those records, isn't there? Good Night, about how I can't get to sleep. And that still happens to me. It's a curse, really. So I'm a bit out of sorts today, but it's now 4 p.m. and I've just about got myself together for this interview. So I'm feeling fine. Thanks for asking.
Well, we appreciate you being here. So just on that, I suppose, obviously, you've been touring and playing live for a very, very long time now. Would you say that the live shows are more nerve-wracking because of the tech element, or is it still like a buzz to do both?
Well, that's an interesting question because the answer is sort of yes and no, depending on when you're talking about. When you talk about the tech element, one of the reasons that I found it very hard to continue in the band, in Reuben, was that towards the end of the band, we were pushing ourselves so hard technically in terms of our playing, but also in terms of our live show. And we did start playing 2 backing tracks, which I never wanted to do, but we weren't clever enough to work out, because we had sort of technical computer elements to some of the stuff we were doing, although you can never really hear them on the records. They are there. We wanted to represent them live, and the only way we could work out to do it was backing tracks. And I had lots of pedals, and I had a loop pedal. We were really trying to represent more of the record live, and what ended up making the show is very, very tense. And I was very unhappy, and it just built to a point where I couldn't do it anymore. So when I came back to tour by myself, under my own aegis, is that the right word? I don't know.
Let's go with them.
I made a concerted effort to make things as simple as possible so that wouldn't happen again. And even though at one point I did do a tour with a 7-piece band that had a brass section, as soon as I discovered that I could still do a great show with just myself and a drummer, that was a real lightning rod moment. And since then, I've never really looked back because, the less people involved and the less technology. I have a sort of an octave pedal to do the bass with, but really, I still only have 3 guitar pedals. I'm a real technophobe. So the less personnel and the less technology makes it easier for me. But on the other hand, I still get tense because on the opposite scale, I hope this isn't going into too much detail for you.
No.
When you're with a band, when I was with Guy and John, I had 2 other people to lean on. The show wasn't me. It didn't say Jamie Lenman on the poster. It said Reuben. It's the 3 of us. So if something went wrong, it went wrong for all 3 of us. Or if it went great for all 3 of us. And I had my brothers with me. And now, even though the drummers I play with, Dan Cav, Chris Rouse, Jack Wrench, and Guy Davis, they're all my brothers. But it's all on my head. It's my name on the poster. It's my face on the poster. So that I don't have anyone really to lean on in the same respect. So if the buck stops with me. If it goes wrong, that's on me. If it goes right, that's on me. So in that regard, it's a little more tense than it was in the band days. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah. It's just finding the balance between the two.
Sure.
Now, obviously, we're all friends here. And in the effort of just getting to know each other a little bit better, I have to ask, it is a very serious question.
Yeah.
If you could be a type of sandwich, what type of sandwich would you be?
A Reuben. Come on.
Why didn't I? Why didn't I think of that?
Someone brought us some Reuben sandwiches once on tour, and they thought, I don't know what they thought. They thought it was just a funny joke, but we were so grateful because we were so hungry. We never got fed on tour, and we were like, oh my God. And I think the person expected us to like go LOL and take some pictures with them and put them down. We're like, great, and just ate them straight away because we were so hungry, and they were delicious. That could be.
Aside, it is the most superior sandwich. It is just the perfect balance of sweet, spicy, everything.
Felt pretty good to me at the time, yeah. So, trick question, Reuben.
There you go. Now, you've not long announced the release of the brand new mini album, King of Clubs, out on September 25th. And you've mentioned that this is going to be a much darker affair than some of your other recent work. Just wanted to ask, what inspired that darker attitude?
Well, I sort of, after things like Devolver, which was very personal, it's even got a song called Personal, for crying out loud, and I got a bit tired of wagging my finger at the world and saying, you're what's wrong with the world and blah, 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 and focused inwards. The state of the world since I made Devolver has, it's not news to say it's gone to hell in a handcart, or hell in a fast car, God damn it. And it just became impossible. Everyone is a political being, and I try to wear my politics with a small p. I'm not a band like Rage Against the Machine. I'm not as educated as those people, and I don't feel entitled to speak out on those issues, particularly issues that don't affect me personally, even though every issue affects me personally. I'm part of a worldwide community. I'm sorry if I'm waffling, but every now and then an issue just gets me so cross that I feel I can't not say things about it. And when I open my mouth to sing a song, it's just what comes out. So the situation with, the distrust of our own government, which I touched on in Muscle Memory, which was another slightly more outward-looking and inward-looking record. That was a big record. I had a song on there about my distrust and, let's face it, hatred of politicians. And so that got revisited again on The Future is Dead, which was really more about the global environmental crisis and how we're being just taken for a ride, but sort of played into what happened with COVID. It wasn't meant to be about COVID, but again, if you see how the politicians are treating us on that, stay inside. I'm going to my fucking summer home. Fuck you. It works for that. It's just about saying, these people don't represent us. Don't trust them. Don't give them a fucking inch. And I stand by that. And then again, there's another very political track on the record, which hasn't come out yet, which is all about targeting antisocial behavior and the excuses that people hide behind when they're accused of things like racism or sexism, and they say, oh, I was drunk. That's why I called that person an offensive term. And you think, no, you called them an offensive term because you're a fucking racist. And the fact that you were drunk just meant you stopped hiding yourself. Trying to tackle those excuses or online, if you're hassling someone online, what's the difference saying to their face? This stuff that people hide behind. The issues that really get to me, and I just couldn't go any further without addressing them. But in no way am I offering answers for any of this or saying, listen to me, I've got the solution. It's just how I personally feel. But then there's other things about it. I sort of tried to focus on negative or at least uncomfortable emotions, tackling facts head on, uncomfortable truths about yourself, about how you see yourself, and seeing where they take you. Some of them end up with a bit of a positive. I'm trying not to be vague and weird on you here. The Road to Right, for instance, the new single, that's specifically about a big trip that I went on. The lyrics are pretty straightforward, but I went on a big old trip around the world when I was a teenager to try and find myself, to try and see who I was. But in a sort of cheap Surrey version. It wasn't like going to India and worshipping with the gurus for 3 years. I literally interrailed around Europe and expected to find some truths about myself. I did find, and the truth I found about myself was that I hated my own guts.
Oh, God.
And which is a real bummer if you're out there on your own.
Yeah.
I did learn some things about myself, and they weren't very pretty. And so that song is about that. So it's all about uncomfortable emotions, be they negative emotions about the state of the world or negative emotions about yourself. And Yeah. Some interesting music comes out when you look at those things. That's all I can say. I'm really excited about the music. And I think it's important to confront difficult, conflicting emotions as well. So I'm quite proud of some of the issues that get tackled on this record. Issues like shame, stuff like that, insecurity. It's an interesting record.
It must have been quite cathartic to write something like that.
Yes, I suppose it was. I never used to approach music from catharsis, and I used to, even when people would talk about using music as catharsis, I didn't really understand what they meant, but you get better at looking at your own self, and sometimes it can be very helpful. Yeah, a couple of songs that I've written over my life have really helped me over particular stumbling blocks. I wouldn't say that, well, let's see how it pans out. Do I feel better? It'd be interesting to see. People really chimed with The Future is Dead. And so that was nice. And we'll see when this other particularly political track about antisocial behavior comes out. Be interested to see how people feel about that, to see if, who's in my corner on that one. And maybe that will prove to be cathartic. Or maybe people will say, hey, you've got the wrong end of the stick. And even that will be valid and interesting. So it's great to start these conversations with people.
Well, definitely. So did you make this this mini album with Space like you have with your other recent bodies of work?
Yeah, he was definitely the go-to guy. I've got a big address book now full of producers, and I was looking at maybe working with someone else because I did the last two with Space, and it's not like I'm sick of him at all. He's probably my best friend, but I did wonder maybe it'd be nice to get another flavour. But then when I put the tracks together in my brain as they were coalescing, I just sort of, either I felt like Space was really the only one that would really understand what I was getting at from the way that our personal relationship works, or there were certain missing parts that I knew that Space held the final piece to, that I knew he'd be able to plug in and go, oh, that's what you need to do there. So there's different kinds of records that I'd like to make with lots of people, but this one had to be Space. Even though I did consider going with someone else. But I think this will be the last one I do with Space for a while, at least, because I would like to move on. And the next record I do, I'm already thinking about the next record. This one isn't even out yet, but I want to do some different stuff. This one had to be really grimy and gritty and dirty, and that's what Space is very good at. That's his raison d'etre. And if I say, this bass has got to sound like it's underwater and it's cross with you, he can, he's got a pedal that says that on it, And all these different just have different strengths, and we have different shorthand with each other. But I knew that Space could get to this place quickest, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely can see there being the Jamie Lenman underwater angry pedal licensed out. I think that's definitely a product that I'd like to see on the shelves one day. But yeah, really looking forward to King of Clubs when it comes out. But going from the future to the here and now, at the time of recording, we are a day removed from what you just mentioned, the Total Request Live show, the second one, where people could request tracks via the medium of Facebook. And you seem to really enjoy doing these shows, even if they are quite a toll, and fans really dig them. Would you consider carrying them on after the whole lockdown situation has wrapped up?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I have considered that, yeah. I mean, at the moment, when we've just come out of one, and I know what an old biddy I sound. Oh, it took an emotional toll, but it does. At the moment, I can't even think about doing the next one, even though I really do want to. But I need a few weeks to consider that. But yes, I did think, yeah, it'd be a shame to stop these when we go into the wider world eventually, when we're released from our imprisonment. And it would be nice to carry them on in some form. So yeah, there's definitely room for that. My only fear, and I know this is unfounded, and if you're watching this interview having been present at either of those Total Request shows, or if you are a fan of Jamie Lenman or whatever, just don't want to let people down. And it's my constant fear that someone requests a song and I can't play it right, or I don't play it. I just want everyone to have such a great time, and I know that's like not at all the vibe, and it's a whole homemade affair, but I just want it to be great, and so I really push myself and try and make it excellent, and there's a lot of build-up, so it takes a lot for me to do it. So the thought of doing them forever is actually quite galling, but I would like to find a way.
Awesome. Well, we are speaking on behalf of every single fan who I've just asked now. We would love to have more. We would love to love more. Okay, But one of my favorite things about these shows, other than the music itself, is that we get to peep at your memorabilia collection.
Yeah.
And it looks very, very impressive, albeit that can't make out quite everything. But I wanted to know, what is your most prized possession from that room?
Well, yeah, my prized possession, maybe this is a boring answer, but I've got a few, but I have to say my most prized would definitely be the replica Colin Baker coat from Doctor Who that I had made. Not least because since I had it made, it's become an official Doctor Who costume.
Oh, really?
Yeah, this is quite a roundabout thing. Colin Baker infamously played the Doctor for a couple of years on telly in the 80s. And his tenure sort of coincided. Doctor Who had a run of bad luck. And some of this bad luck stemmed from a really awful costume they gave him. They gave him a sort of a Pied Piper multicolored coat that everyone hated. Apart from me, I love it. And when I was a kid, I always wanted one. And a few years ago, I saw that a professional tailor, who's also a big Doctor Who fan, had made his own one. And in order to make it, he'd not only borrowed the real one from a collector who owned it, but he'd made up all the individual fabrics. You can't just buy all this fabric. He had them like woven. He had a whole loom woven. So he said, look, I've got about enough material on the internet, this was, to make maybe 8 more of these, and they're going to cost like $1,500 each, but I'll make them if you got the dosh with this material. This is like once in a lifetime. No one's ever going to weave this material again, and it's measured against the real thing. So this is a 100% accurate replica, and I had one made for me. And then I think I wore it. It's a long story, but it's a good story.
Please carry on.
I wore it to do a show because I did a show on Doctor Who Day. In fact, it was the launch show of the St. Pancras record, and it was on 23rd of November, which is National Doctor Who Day. And for the encore, I sang the Doctor Who theme, and I wore the coat because I don't get to wear it out much. And I sent a photo of me in the coat to Doctor Who magazine, who I work for, I know very well. I said, look, I wore the coat at a gig. And they said, great. Big Finish might want to talk to you about that coat. And I said, And Big Finish, if you don't know, which you probably don't, are a company that make Doctor Who audio dramas, like radio plays. And when it was off the telly, and since it's been back on the telly, they make these really good audio dramas starring all the stars of the show, even from back in the 60s. They get all the old actors back, and because it's on audio, you can't see like the rubber monsters or that the actors have got. They're really great. And I listened to them a lot. And they got hold of me and they said, look, we've only got about 5 pictures of Colin Baker from the 80s in that coat to put on the covers of these things. And he's always doing the 5 same poses. Can we please borrow your coat so we can put it on an actor and have them in different poses and then superimpose Colin Baker's head onto it for the covers of our CDs? And I said, yeah, sure thing. And so they borrowed my coat and they did a photo shoot for these CDs. And now, whenever you see the 6th Doctor on the cover of these official, mind you, Doctor Who adventures, he's wearing my coat. He's not wearing the one from the TV show in the 80s. He's wearing mine. That's Colin Baker's face photoshopped onto my coat. And even, get this is even more exciting. When I was a kid, I had a little waistcoat that I bought myself when I was 10 because I thought it looked a bit like the one that Doctor Who wore. Wasn't exactly the same, but it was near enough. And I wore it all the time, and I got bullied for wearing it. And I put it on the model, the dummy, with my official coat. But when I sent the coat to Big Finish, I said, look, I've got a sort of a waistcoat that's near enough. Do you want the waistcoat too? And they said, yeah, bung it in. And I didn't expect them to use the waistcoat. And they used the waistcoat. So now, when you see Doctor Who on the cover of the CDs, not only is he wearing my coat that I own, he's also wearing my waistcoat from when I was 10 that I bought because it looked a bit like Doctor Who's waistcoat. And now it actually is Doctor Who's waistcoat. So I hope that story was worth the time.
I mean, that's destiny if I've ever heard it. I mean, I heard on the live stream yesterday your favourite Doctor was Sylvester McCoy.
Yeah.
I have to take a small amount of umbrage at that because my name is literally Tom Baker, and so I've got to follow my guy. But
he's very good. Tom Baker's very good. Don't get me wrong. I love him. And he's still playing the Doctor on those audio plays. He's great.
Certainly is. What a voice. But anyway, I suppose this is somewhat connected to Doctor Who, because as many people will know, you are a professional illustrator and artist as well as a musician. And I wanted to know, obviously, in recent years, your musical output has ramped up. And I wanted to know how you find time to balance between the two worlds.
Well, it's funny you should say that, because since my musical output ramped up, when I started working with Big Scary Monsters, they were like, put out a record, put out another record. Hey, what do you think about making another record? And it leaves me in a position where even if they don't ask, because that motor has been revved up, so to speak, yeah, I am running at top speed and I'm putting out a lot of stuff. And because I know that I can go to them and say, hey, got some songs, do you want to put them out? They'll go, yeah, great. They're really up for it. So yes, I've been doing a lot more music. And coincidentally, from about the time that Devolver came out, because between Muscle Memory and Devolver, so between the band and Muscle Memory, I was a full-time designer, and that's all I did. And then when I did Muscle Memory up until Devolver, I didn't really do anything between Muscle Memory and Devolver. It was about 3 years or so. I was still doing an awful lot of illustration work, freelance work, children's books, blah, blah, blah. And then coincidentally, it wasn't because I was ignoring one and concentrating on the other, but from about when Devolver came out, the illustration work died off, which was a real bummer to me because I really loved it and I'd really enjoyed doing those children's books. But for whatever reason, it just sort of fucked off. But it didn't matter too much because I was so busy writing and recording and touring. Touring takes up a lot of time, not just the amount of time you spend on the road, you rehearse, whatever. So it didn't really bother me, although in the back of my mind I did think, where's all the illustration work gone? And it sort of stayed that way. For the last few years, I've been concentrating mainly on music and very little illustration work. And in fact, the only illustration work I do on the reg is for Doctor Who magazine. Funnily enough, they employ me to illustrate the reviews of those plays we were talking about, the audio plays, every month. And actually, I review them now as well. So I've got to hold my fingers in those pies, which is great. Because before, they'd say, hey, do you want to draw a picture of like 1 million robots on an exploding volcano planet for this review? And I'd say, oh, God. And now, because I write the review, I get to say, the best scene in this play is the scene where it's just the Doctor on his own with a purely white background, is super easy to draw. Here's a drawing. So I've got a real racket there that I run. No, it's not true. But... So that's the only ongoing illustration work that I do. And it's just as well because I am still busy with the music. I would like to do more illustration work. And actually, since lockdown began, I started a little series on my Instagram about the little mascot characters from all those 80s cartoons, a little passion project. I was talking to an illustrator in London about my lack of illustration work. And he said, you just got to do what you want. You just got to draw what you love anyway. And then, see what happens. And it's really taken off. And I've been selling prints and people have really been enjoying them. So that's been fun. But I've been doing that under my own aegis. I should look that word up because I've said it twice now. So, yeah.
I mean, we'll think of a definition if there isn't one already. But yes, I mean, would you ever consider doing, I don't know, I suppose, artwork for your own album covers? Because obviously you did do that a bit with We Should Have Gone to University, the Reuben compilation, but for Devolver onwards, it's been more either yourself or it's been more sort of graphic rather than illustration. Would you ever do your own style of illustration for one of your album covers?
Yeah, maybe if I had a really strong concept. I mean, sometimes it's just not what's called for, I mean, even though, the cover of Devolver was just a photograph of me, but still, I art directed it and it was still art by me. I just didn't do it with a pencil. And similarly, that cover for King of Clubs. In fact, King of Clubs did have an illustrated cover. I did an illustration for it, but it didn't work for me. And then when I was talking to Kev, the label manager, and he said, oh, you should do a video for the track because there's a title track, King of Clubs. And I thought about what it would look like, and I imagined this horrible creature in the sheet with the club on its face and the crown. And so we took some photos of that, and that ended up better. So I did do an illustration for the cover, but it didn't make the cut. And, I'm sure people will see that at some point. We might, an in-day or a book or whatever. So, yeah, it's definitely not out of the question. In fact, that was the plan. But it just got steamrolled. And I think it's quite important to previously I wouldn't have been able to be that flexible with it. I would have had an idea that I'd concentrated on it, and I go, no, this is it. This is what I'm going to do. Even if it didn't quite work, I probably would have stuck with it. Whereas I was quite proud of myself that I was able to look at this piece of work that I'd done and go, you know what? It's not right. Let's do something else. So, yes, in answer to your question, yes, I actually did draw the cover for King of Clubs, but it didn't work. And I may do it in the future. So, yeah, why not?
It's very interesting. It's very interesting. Now, here at UDS or Upside Down Shark or wherever I call myself nowadays, we don't just talk about music. We talk about the breadth of pop culture, movies, video games, TV shows, comic books, even wrestling sometimes if the occasion calls for it. But with that in mind, if you could have one of your songs featured in anything, what would it be?
Well, it's already actually happened to me. When I was younger, that's another one of my bloody lyrics, isn't it? When I was younger, it's a shame. I really wanted for my music, the band's music, when we were doing rock and roll stuff, to be like the party music for like a teen comedy, for like a party in a teen comedy, and that happened. And I have the DVD here. Let me get the DVD. Hold up. I won't be 1 second. It's right here. Van Wilder 2. This is the worst film in the world. It's really cool. But in the sort of college frat house party scene, all the kids in America are dancing to Kick in the Mouth by Reuben with my like potato voice in this American frat house. That was all I wanted, to be like the party music in a teen comedy in a movie. And I'm not sure if this even made it into cinemas, but it is on a movie and I got it. So that's what I wanted. And it happened, so that's really cool.
That's amazing. I don't think I've seen Van Wilder 1, so I definitely need to skip that and just go straight to Van Wilder 2.
Oh, if you want to. Okay, but yeah, I mean, it is cool. The scene itself, there's some sort of not very cool, sexy jokes and whatnot in it, but yeah. And there's a kid that looks a bit like me in the sequence. He looks like me when I was a kid, an anatomically blessed kid. So that, I mean, that's not the part that looks like me. We've gone too far on this, but it's a funny scene. Yeah, check it out. Yeah.
Will do. Now, here at UDS, we like to advocate positivity, and one of the ways we do that is through inspirational quotes. One of my favorites is, I can't believe I ate the whole thing. Because if you just keep reminding yourself that, then whatever you're doing in life, in any facet, anything at all, any situation, you will end up eating the whole thing. But with that in mind, what would be your inspirational quote to share with the world?
My inspirational quote, do you know what? Something I think about an awful lot is when my dad died, he'd started writing his life story, and I didn't know about this, and I only found it after he died, and he only made it up to the age of 5 before he got bored. But these writings are really special to me, and my dad was, he was an awkward bugger. He was one of these people that would... Even if he agreed with you, he would take up the contrary side to the argument just to poke you. What he would say was that, well, no one was defending the other side of the argument, so that I stuck up for them. And sometimes he would defend some pretty, indefensible ideologies and whatnot. And everyone just thought he was being a prick. But in his own mind, he was just trying to sweeten the conversation. He was a weird guy. But we didn't talk philosophy an awful lot. But through reading his... memoirs, he opened up his mind a little bit, and there was one little bit that really caught me, and I liked it so much that I put it as a quote in the inlay to Muscle Memory, which was a record that dealt with, his death and family amongst a lot of things. And he said something like, when discussing saving the world, the state of the world, he said, it's easy to believe that war is the natural state of the world, but actually it's not. If you look at all of world history, the period that countries and nations have been at war is actually a very small fraction of the time. The natural inclination of the world is towards peace, which is easy to forget in competitive times that we live in. And then he said, and then he just says, keep chipping away is the message. And I never heard him say anything that philosophical or positive or hopeful or bright. He was quite a cynical man. But to read him write that down, war is not the natural state of the world. keep chipping away. I just thought that was so great. I wish he'd said that to me when he was alive, but he wrote it down and I read it. And so that I think about that a lot, keep chipping away, you know? So yeah, there's your answer.
That's amazing. That is particularly nowadays, as you say, that's something I think we all need to keep in mind.
Yeah.
Well, obviously no one can plan for the rest of 2020. It's so up in the air. It's so up in the air that you can't even see it. It's like the balloons that fly away at the fun fair. But with that in mind, as best as you can, what does the rest of the year have in store for you?
As best as I can. I mean, I've got things planned for 2020 because even though there's no shows or whatnot, I am putting a record out. And that's going to go ahead whether you like it or not on the 25th of September. And in fact, you know, I don't want to say this is a good time because people are dying, but you can still buy a record from your home and we can still send it to you. You can still put music on, and music is one of the things that is flourishing, even though, like I say, it sounds awful to say, but people have always got music. And in fact, this kind of thing is what music's for, isn't it? And so I feel very good to have a record ready to put out there in this time. And yep, that's going to be ramping up, and I'm going to put out a few more little teasy singles between now and then. I'm working on a lot of content. We actually shot a lot of footage and content, and the music video that came out on Monday, The Road to Right, you know, obviously we shot that before lockdown, and I was editing that up until midnight on Sunday. So there's more stuff to come, and I can't wait for everyone to hear the record. And I'm looking forward to seeing what people make of the little tiny teases. And without wanting to, although I know, I mean, I'm enjoying talking to you, but from a purely work perspective, you know, the reason I'm doing this interview is to publicize my record, isn't it? You know, so without wishing to really shill it to people, this record is unique. It's like nothing I've ever done before. And what I mean by that is there's certain things we've done to make it interesting for people, because I always, especially if we're asking for money, if I'm saying to you in this digital age, pay pounds for a physical product, I want to make sure that it's worth your time. And the ways we always try and come up with different ways of making that valid for people. And we come up with some great stuff this time for fans, you know, because anyone who just like heard of Jamie Lenman or hears it on the radio or whatever, they could just go to Spotify or YouTube and listen to it for free, nothing. But the supporters, people who want to pay for music and support music, I really value that, cash input, which the industry needs. And so I make sure that what you're buying is worth it. So I'm really excited to see what people make of the efforts that we've gone to deliver a lovely package for people. That's very exciting for me. And for a designer as well. I've been designing the artwork. You know, it's not just as a musician. When I make a record, it touches every part of what I do: design, illustration, video editing, as well as singing and recording. So it's all of me. You get all of me. And this record is very true of that. It's all of me.
This is the last question that we always end our interviews with, and that is, we are Upside Down Shark. And as we said off camera, I still can't really remember why we're Upside Down Shark, but we're in too deep to change it. But with that in mind, Jamie Lenman, what is your favorite shark? And it can be real, it can be fictional, it could be something from a movie, it could be something from nature. But what would be your favorite shark?
Now, I just want to be absolutely truthful with you when I answer this, because there's a lot of good sharks. And I am going to say, this is quite niche, but my favorite shark, it's not because I see you've got a hammerhead there as your thingamabob, and hammerhead sharks are my favorite type of shark in the real world, but they are my favorite type of shark because of the hammerhead character from Dino Riders. I don't know if anyone knows about Dino Riders, but it was a cartoon and an excellent toy line from the 80s about, I think it was about like some spaceship fighters that crashed on prehistoric Earth and like made friends with the dinosaurs and ultimately like rode them as excellent tanks. But they were fighting, the Dino Riders were fighting the Rulons, who were a sort of a weird, the Dino Riders were like human-esque people, humanoids, as we say in SF. And the Rulons were all kinds of different animals. as people. So like body of a person, head of an animal, and one of them like the head of an ant, and one of them, my favorite one, had the head of a hammerhead shark with the eyes. And I just thought he was so cool. So hammerhead shark is the answer, but more specifically, the hammerhead shark dude from Dino Riders. This is my favorite type of shark. He's definitely
there you go.
Shark. Yeah.
That's a new debut shark on the list of favorite sharks. So congratulations. Well, that is all I have got today. So all I've got left to say is, Jamie, thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you today.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
And anyone listening at home, make sure to listen to Jamie's brand new single, The Road to Right, wherever you listen to good music. Head to bsm.com for the latest on how to pre-order King of Clubs out September 25th. Hit subscribe for more interviews with cool people like Frank Turner, False Advertising, and more. And I shall catch you next time, because I'm bad at outros.
Over time I had less to